to have you all with us today on this wonderful Zoom event. So today is our first to medicine panel. My name is Brandon Quiles. I'm our program coordinator for the Division of Student Academic Success. And I am happy to welcome Kimberly Bellamy, who is an associate who represents the Association of American Medical Colleges. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor or virtual room over to her, as she will be our moderator today for today's discussion. So just some logistical pieces. If you haven't been in a workshop with me, a virtual workshop with me, we're big fans of engagement. If you can have your cameras on, we know that our guests here today would love to be able to see the face of the students who they're talking to. And also we have our chat feature. So if you have questions, feel free to unmute when that opportunity presents itself, or feel free to add those questions within the chat, and I will make sure that I monitor that and that I make sure that Ms. Bellamy can share that with our panelists, because we want to make sure that we get the questions that you have answered. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Bellamy.
Thank you. So as was mentioned, my name is Kimberly Bellamy. I work at the Association of American Medical Colleges, or as we like to refer to it as AAMC. If you aren't familiar with AAMC, we are a nonprofit member institution that serves and leads over 150 MD granting medical schools. And we provide a range of different services and resources to help individuals across the continuum in their journey to medicine, and even after they matriculate into medicine as well. I serve as Senior Specialist Strategic Programs and Partnerships within Equity, Diversity, Inclusion at AAMC. I am honored to have the privilege today to moderate this session for you all, focused on being first generation, not only to medicine, but to the health professions. We have a number of panelists here today that not only have experience within medicine, but some within dentistry as well as pharmacy. So I'm hoping that this will be a very rich discussion in which you'll be able to gain a lot of valuable information from. So we are going to start off today by going over some of our session objectives. There we are. So as a result of this session today, I'm hoping that you learn more about various different health professions pathways. As I said, we do have a few panelists here who are on that medical track, but we also have two other panelists that are pursuing pharmacy as well as dentistry as well. So just opening up opportunities and possibilities there on other health professions that you can pursue. In addition to that, determining how to find a support network. We know that first generation students don't always have someone available that can answer questions about those pathways, particularly into these health professions. So just figuring out who can you depend on, who can you call on for guidance and help if you have questions about going into these particular career pathways. Third, discover facilitators for success. So finding out directly from our panelists here today what has worked well for them, what did they learn along the way, and hopefully those can be things that will also help you along your journey. And then fourth, deepen your knowledge about resources to pursue the health professions. So now we are going to get into panelists and introductions. So we are going to start off with Dr. Akujovi, and he is going to provide a quick introduction for us and just share a little bit more about himself.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Innocent Akujovi. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm Nigerian by origin, but born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. I went to Howard University for undergrad and medical school. Following medical school, I came to Orlando at Orlando Health for emergency medicine residency. Upon completing emergency medicine residency, I decided to partake in an administrative fellowship My fellowship had a special focus on health equity and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I worked really closely with senior executive leadership throughout the year, helping them use a DEI lens for looking at various health equity matters throughout the organization. Upon completion of fellowship, kind of rolled into a position at the University of Central Florida. I'm currently the director of health equity education there. And so I'm definitely excited to be here today to kind of just basically share some insight to, how I've been able to get to where I'm currently at in life and be a token of inspiration or a token of support for you guys or for any student here that is looking for any guidance. So thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zara Zenade, and I am a fourth-year pharmacy student from Rutgers University. In terms of how I got here, I actually applied for a 6-year pharmacy program out of high school, and I got accepted, and now I'm here. But as a fourth-year student, I'm actually applying for jobs outside of graduation, and my career trajectory is kind of focusing on being involved in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm really interested in medical information and medical affairs positions. So I'm currently going through the fellowship interview process, and we'll see what happens there. And throughout pharmacy school, I've been involved in a lot of research opportunities, and I'm also part of the Rutgers American College of Clinical Pharmacy chapter.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we are going to So our next panelist actually informed me that she was called away for an emergency, but she will be joining us hopefully a bit later. She said it should take about 20 minutes or so. So I am just going to do a quick rundown of Jaya's background. So she's a third-year dental student at Rutgers School of Dental Medicine. She graduated from Rutgers in Brunswick campus with a bachelor's degree in biological sciences. During her time at Rutgers, she was a part of the honors program, conducted research in fertility as a research assistant, and taught the Are You Fit course, which was an introductory course for first-year international students. She was born and raised in New Jersey and has 2 siblings, one of which actually attended the Camden campus. So again, that is a quick introduction for her. And again, she'll be joining us a bit later. And then our final panelist here is actually the president of an organization called First Gen Low Income in Medicine. So I'll allow her to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Mi Tian Wen. I'm a MD-PhD student at Yale School of Medicine. I'm currently in my PhD phase of the MD-PhD dual degree. I am biracial, and I also identify as a first-gen low-income student. I went to Cornell for undergrad and did a couple of pipeline programs during undergrad in my pre-med track. For research, one including the Travelers Fellowship Program for underrepresented students at Weill Cornell. I was on the Medical Student Council, and I'm a very big part of the Black Health Scholars Network for health equity research. And as Kim mentioned, we've co-founded the First Gen Low Income Medical Student Association, which is a national group for first gen and or low income pre-med medical students, residents, faculty, etc., all the way up the ladder. And our main objective is to increase visibility and resources for first gen low income students.
Thank you. So now I am going to stop share. I just want it to be kind of an open, less formal discussion, just to learn a little bit more about your journeys, pursuing your health professions, particularly how your experience as a first generation college student impacted your pursuit of your profession. So I am just going to start with the first question here, one that probably I think all of the participants are wondering: how did you decide to pursue your health profession, and what influenced your decision? So any one of you that want to start off and get us jump started here, feel free to share. Or I could call on someone.
I don't mind going first. So for me, so my parents were immigrants, and so growing up, I had pretty bad and persistent asthma. And oftentimes my parents leaned on the emergency department, the pediatric emergency department, as a safety net. So I was always there late hours of the night when my asthma would kind of kick up in a sense. And so at a very young age, I was exposed to the hospital system. And it was at that time that I was very inquisitive. I'm like, wow, who are these great people in these, in these scrubs and these white coats? They're always taking care of me. They're doing great work. Maybe one day I too can, emulate or be in that same position. And so that was my first initial exposure to medicine. And it kind of basically sparked my inquisitiveness. And so, throughout high school and undergrad, I always sought ways, and I sought programming and enrichment programs, summer programs that were kind of geared towards medicine, because I wanted to find out where exactly within medicine my greatest passion was, whether that was clinical medicine versus research versus doing more public health, community-based medicine. And so over time, I was able to come to the realization that I enjoy clinical medicine. And not only do I enjoy clinical medicine, I appreciate the controlled chaos that the emergency department comes with. And so that kind of is what led me into doing most of my preceptorships in emergency medicine throughout medical school. And then also, doing an emergency medicine residency program. So that's kind of my, backstory of how I got to EM.
Thank you. So it sounds like a few personal experiences really shape your interest in going into medicine. And then from there, it's been a continuous discovery process since then. So excellent. Did any of our other panelists want to share what encouraged you to pursue your particular health profession?
For me, I kind of had the idea of wanting to be a doctor when I was in high school. My family, I grew up in Vietnam, but I grew up here as well in Vermont, and we had, there was a lot of dichotomy or differences between the US healthcare system and the Vietnam healthcare system. And so that inspired me to go into medicine. And I entered undergrad as a pre-medical student, but the pre-med environment wasn't something that I was happy in general in the first 2 years of undergrad. And so I actually decided to pursue biomedical engineering instead, and was quote unquote off the track for a little bit. And I started pursuing research, considering a PhD. And that's when I started working with one of my mentors, who's an MD PhD. And even though I was interested in research, I finally saw that connection to merge my interest in essentially health equity, advocacy, and research. And so I think to keep an open mind and was important. And so I had a very windy and a lot of detours along the way, which essentially really made me more determined to pursue medicine now, as well as kind of having a better idea of what type of medicine I want to pursue. And still something I'm discovering now.
So audience members, participants, I think one of the key things that you can take from that too is that you don't always have to just choose the pre-med track entering college. You can choose other majors in order to be successful within your health professions track. And also just knowing that you have options within each one of these professions as well. You've already seen two different pathways here for two individuals that are within medicine, one that is more doing the MD PhD track, another is doing emergency medicine. So you do have various different options available. I think just to round out this question, Zara, do you want to also share a little bit?
Sure. Okay, so I guess my track is a little bit different because I am in pharmacy. So I'm also an immigrant. I came here at a very young age. And I think what really kind of led me here is the fact that I was a very curious child. And my mom actually used to call me Curious George. And she would just let me do whatever I wanted to do and kind of explore my interests. So I remember when I was little, I would like, when people would get sick in my family or my friends would, have like foot pain or something, I would try to like make little potions for them with lotion or just anything weird that I could find. And I was just very interested in this kind of science and this kind of treating people. And as I got older and I got into high school, I realized that there are many different options that I could pursue in healthcare. And when I was applying to colleges, I applied to different programs, and pharmacy was one of those. And the good thing about the pharmacy program was that the first 2 years were kind of focused on just general science courses. So it was pre-med, basically. And I knew that I wanted to do healthcare. I just wasn't sure if it was like pharmacy or being a physician. So I entered this program. And the reason I stuck with pharmacy is because I actually really loved organic chemistry. It was just something that made sense to me. And I knew that I wanted to keep pursuing this further. And so that's basically what led me here. And now I'll be graduating in a couple of months and actually working as a pharmacist, which is very exciting.
That is extremely exciting. Congratulations to you. So I want to get into the next question here that's kind of talking a little bit about building your support network. So Zara, you mentioned that you had the ability to kind of explore different options. Your mom, kind of let you kind of go through your own discovery process there. Dr. Akujovi, you mentioned earlier that you kind of did some own self-discovery yourself with kind of figuring out how you wanted to go into medicine. Each one of you kind of had to identify, different areas in which led you into the current tracks that you're going into. But I'm wondering, as you were developing an interest and passion for pursuing this, who did you really call on for support to help you find out what's the correct way to go through this particular pathway or this process? Did you depend on family? Was it an advisor? Was it a teacher? So I'm just wondering, who did you all seek at various different times along your journey? And Zara, do you want to get us started with that question?
Sure, yeah, that's definitely a really important question. So no one in my family has done pharmacy. I'm the first one, actually. And I think what really helped me in terms of figuring out like what I wanted to do and if this is what was right for me was just talking to other people. I remember I would just talk to my classmates, I would talk to my professors, and we even had an advisor. And when we entered the program, we had mentors. So the biggest difference was made probably by like the upperclassmen who are doing the program already. I remember just trying to connect with as many people as possible and just learning about what their experiences were like and if it's something that I would be interested in. And just definitely just always asking questions and just meeting new people. You never know like where their interests might align with yours and might lead you to a different direction.
I guess I'll go ahead and follow up. So for me, very similar. However, also I learned like at a very young age that, one of the best resources that I could tap into revolved around various community-based enrichment programs. And so I was a program goer. I think I went to almost every program that was out there. So and that spanned from doing a research-based program at Washington University in St. Louis to kind of get a little idea of if I had a liking or a calling to research. And then I also did, at the time it was called SMDEP, Summer Medical Educational Dental Program, and it's currently now called the Summer Health Professions Education Program. I did it at Columbia my freshman year in undergrad. And so this is a summer program, amazing enrichment program that basically pulls in freshmen and sophomores that have an interest in medicine, brings them to one of, I want to say 12 institutions throughout the United States for around 6 to 8 weeks. And you're amongst a class of about, for me, my class is like 80 students that all have an interest in medicine. And so you kind of take a few courses geared towards like the sciences. So you'll do some, biology or orgo courses, all courses that are geared towards preparing you for the MCAT, but you also have the opportunity to go into the hospital and shadow. So I got to shadow in internal medicine and neonatology and also in the psych ER. And so that was like, as a freshman in undergrad, that summer, it was an amazing time for me to kind of just step away and say, hey, let me really figure out if I like this clinical side of medicine. And so at that program, I met amazing mentors, amazing faculty members. And the program had such a big impact on me. I'm huge on gratitude. So when I got into medical school, so thankfully enough at Howard University, they also conduct this program in the summer. I went back and I was a faculty member for 2 years. And so I was able to see the conundrum on both sides. I was able to see as a participant and also what influence you can have as a faculty member. So I say that to say enrichment programs can be an amazing tool to help you kind of map out the blueprint of how best to be successful into getting into medical school. And for those on the call that are currently freshmen or sophomores, I would definitely highly advise you to apply to this same summer program. Again, it's called Summer Health Professions Education Program. The application cycle just opened. Don't feel intimidated. I think one of the biggest things that students kind of get intimidated with the process is getting a letter of recommendation. Don't feel intimidated. It's probably one of the best decisions you'll make. Looking back at my class of 80 students. And so at that time, our focus was on getting into medical school or dental school. Out of the 80 students, I would say probably at least 60 of us are currently either doctors or physicians or dentists. So it has a high success rate. And so, yeah, again, I would highly encourage, getting involved with various enrichment programs as a way of like kind of building support and learning what are the best practices into being successful.
That was literally the best promotion I could have ever asked for SHPD. I typically, when I do these panels, make sure that I pitch that particular program because it's amazing and it's no cost to the students at all, completely free. So we are going to be offering this in person for this upcoming cycle. Obviously due to the pandemic and COVID, the last 2 cycles, we did more virtual programming, but we are going to be transitioning back to in-person for summer 2022. So within that, we cover travel for students, we cover food at the end of the 6-week program. Those who successfully complete everything also get a stipend as well. And all of the other amazing benefits that you cover in terms of just like science enrichment, developing that peer network. Highly recommend. I did see a question come through in the chat about if it's only for first and second year students, and it is. Those who have 60 credit hours or less are eligible to participate. I will try to drop in our other summer enrichment program directory because if you are past that point within your education, there are other programs that you can look into. So don't feel like this is the only one, but if you are within this current stage within your education, definitely take advantage of that for sure. So I just wanted to give that little sidebar promotion for SHPP. Thank you for that. And also just kind of recap what some of the responses were related to that question thus far. So I heard a lot about making sure that you were looking to peers. So upperclassmen who are already, further along in their programs than you that have maybe some guidance and insight to provide you can kind of share, what some of the things that they found helpful for them during their journeys. So developing those peer networks, and then of course the summer enrichment programs are definitely amazing opportunity for you to build your support network there. Are there any other things that we want to share related to just developing that network and making sure that you have different individuals or people in place that you can call on if needed? Or if we feel like we kind of covered those main topics.
I just wanted to add something to what you already talked about. I'm really glad that you mentioned the program because I was actually a teaching assistant for it over this past summer. And I did want to mention that it does have a pharmacy portion. So if that's what you're interested in, we can definitely help you with that. And I think this program is so great because I was actually really able to develop really good connections with the students. And a lot of them like asking for help with their CV, for applying to pharmacy school, for applying to jobs even. So if you need those connections, if you want help, like this is a really great opportunity. And that being said, another really great way to find these connections is through LinkedIn. Like I don't know if everyone has it, but I strongly suggest that you make it. Even at this point in my career, I was recommended to just find people like in the positions that I want to be in and then just contact them. And it never hurts because a lot of these people, sometimes they might not respond, but a lot of them are very nice and are willing to help. So it doesn't hurt to just send that first message and just see where it goes.
Yes, I love that piece of advice. Definitely don't feel intimidated or scared to just do a cold, I won't say a cold call, but a cold email to someone via LinkedIn, just to let them know like, hey, I came across your profile. I see that you have experience in the same area that I'm looking to pursue. Would you be willing to just chat with me for like 15, 20 minutes and just set up an informational interview to get the conversation started? So that is an excellent piece of advice. So thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm keeping an eye on the time. We have a lot of great questions that I want to make sure that we cover today. So the next question that I want to go to is reflecting on your experiences. What do you think has been your biggest facilitator for your success thus far? So if you had to pinpoint any particular things, what were some key things that you put in place to make sure that despite you being a first generation college student, that I did this and I was able to successfully matriculate into my program, or I was able to get through that hard organic chemistry course and be successful. So what are some things that you all have to offer related to that?
I think I can go.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. So one thing that helped me, I would say, matriculating into dental school and especially even undergrad, was having a strong support system. So as everyone mentioned, doing these outreach programs that are offered through dental schools or medical schools are also ways to build support systems. So during these programs, you get to meet faculty, admissions officers, and it might seem like intimidating at first because they're the people that are going to review your applications down the line, but they're also good support systems and are there to help you along your journey. So if you have any questions and things like that, they're there to answer them, as well as academic advisors during my undergrad years were also very helpful. And I would say trying to find like a mentor. They don't necessarily have to be in the field that you're trying to go into, but someone that's there that can, I guess, not just answer your questions, but also lead you in the right direction in terms of if you're struggling with studying or just life in general. Someone that's there as like a mentor was helpful for me. So I found that through doing research during my undergraduate experience. So it wasn't anything related to dentistry, but she was there to help, like I said, when I was applying and writing letters of recommendation, and just helping me like figure out what I wanted to do, whether it was going to medical school, going to dental school, and just like weighing those options. So, yeah.
I think 100% agree with Jaya. And something I want to add on is to, I don't like this word resilient and grit, but essentially to be okay with failing and not doing your best. As we talk about SMDAP, I remember how I felt when I didn't get into SMDAP or other summer programs I applied to. And I took that as a first year student in undergrad as a indication that I won't get into med school, or that I'm not a good pre-med student. And you see how I that was a small but contributing factor to me not being on the pre-med track for a while. And so to find mentor and a support network to be there to advocate for you and be the person, the external factor to help you build your confidence and keep going and maintain your motivation. But it's okay to also not take time to yourself, etc., and fail. And my mentors always say to fail forward. And everyone's success looks very different. Yours will look very different from any other person in this call. So everyone has their own unique journey. So one thing that I learned was not to compare myself to others, and just continue to do whatever I want, essentially, and whatever my passion drives me to do. And I think that would, in the end, will make you a successful and motivated person.
I just want to add in one quick thing. So like she mentioned, being okay with failing. So I mentioned that I did research during my undergraduate experience, but the first research position that I applied to, actually the first few, I got denied from. So I just kept at it, kept applying, and I was like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and like, don't give up. Just because you didn't get this position doesn't mean that down the line you won't get one. So as you mentioned, like, don't give up if the first time you don't succeed. Try again.
I just want to second that or third that. I definitely agree with, not being put down by failure, especially with the research. Like for every 15 programs I applied to, I probably got rejected from 14, and there would be one after many, many tries. And whatever is meant for you will happen. So if you really want something, just don't give up and don't be discouraged by that rejection letter, because you never know that there might be something better waiting for you.
You all are providing such valuable information. One of the things that I wrote down that I'm probably just gonna write somewhere and put near my desk area too, that was shared, is fail forward. So if we do experience failure in some way, or we hear a no, that doesn't mean that that's an absolute no, just means not right now, that we have the opportunity to continue to improve, and just take that as, what areas can I strengthen within my background and my skills, and really seek that feedback. So I know with working with pre-med and current medical students now, as well as some pre-health students in my previous role, they don't always get that acceptance, the first try. They get rejection letters. They may not get the MCAT score that they hope to the first time, but I try to encourage them to keep going and not give up just because they get one no. So again, no is not an absolute. It just means not right now, and just kind of take that as an opportunity to be more reflective and think about, okay, well, what can I do differently, and really seek feedback from others to kind of figure out how you can improve in those areas. So thank you all so much for sharing that. So, I kind of mentioned the application piece in terms of everyone hopes to get that acceptance within your program. And sometimes that doesn't always happen the first time, but how can you really prepare yourself for that application process, and really talk about your experience as being a first generation student as a benefit, as something that is really a strength opposed to a deficit. I don't know if any of you had anything to share in terms of how you were able to leverage that within preparing for talking to some of the admissions committees, or incorporating that into your applications, or just in general. Even if it's not within the application process, how did you internally kind of focus on that and say, hey, this is really something that is a strength of mine. It shows my resilience and those types of things. So did anyone have anything to share related to that? Zara, I'm going to go with you first because I see head nods.
Okay. So I guess I can give some insight, actually, because I am interviewing now for my post-graduation position. And something that is definitely unique about first-generation students pursuing this type of position is that we're really self-motivated. Like that's what's basically driving us. There's nobody there. Most of the time, there aren't that many people there to guide us, someone there to tell us what to do and how to do it. So that self-motivation is really key to being successful, especially, you know, being in a virtual environment or just working with other people in environments that you're not comfortable with or unfamiliar with. So I think that's a very big talking point, and I've been using that in all my interviews, and I think that they like it. So I would definitely recommend that.
So within the national organization, we talk about this a lot because generally first gen deficit model is correlated, or administrators like to talk about it in a very correlated deficit way. One thing that I encourage my mentees to think about when they talk about the journey to medicine during the application is whenever they talk about a challenge, focus more on how they recover from that challenge or pass through that hurdle. Because like in med school, everyone will go through some type of challenge in medicine in general. You're gonna get burned out, jaded, you're gonna fail a test, maybe a board exam. But what you wanna show schools is that whatever challenge, you know, medicine throws at you, you will be able to overcome it. And that is the number one argument that you can make for yourself as a competitive applicant to medical school. Because talking about, you know, a lot of resilience and anticipating challenges and having a tool that you develop already for yourself to overcome those challenges.
I agree. You know, I think perseverance and resilience are basically, I don't know, they're the name of this medicine game. Whether you are a undergrad student, whether you're a medical student, whether you're a resident, whether you're a practicing physician, there's always going to be hurdles, always going to be challenges that you have to persevere through. And so I think as a first generation student, you know, one of the key things you can do is just really know and appreciate your story and be able to convey it. You know, and I hear for first generation, and I think of how medicine is very conservative, and if you look at, you know, the physician workforce or some of the mid-level workforce, there are gaps, there's areas of opportunity for increasing more representation. And so being a first generation student just basically implies that there's a need for you, and that there's a need for our professions to be more reflective of our society. And so I think if you just kind of know your story and are able to articulate it and speak to it, it can only allow, you know, the different admissions committees an opportunity to connect with you. So, but yeah, perseverance and resilience are, you know, key. You know, you will reach a roadblock at some point along the journey, but it's all about appreciating the journey. It's all about learning from, you know, those roadblocks and kind of moving forward.
The advice that you provided about just kind of embracing your story, I feel like goes hand in hand with some of the guidance that was shared earlier about not comparing yourself to others as well. So just knowing that you all are on your own unique journeys. No one's journey into these health professions is the same, and just taking, you know, full ownership within that. These are the things that I've experienced. These are the things that I've learned along the way, and this is what makes me, you know, the best applicant candidate for this program because of my unique experiences. So just make sure that you all embrace that. If you don't take anything else from this session, make sure that you really cling on to that in terms of owning your story. So I'm going to try to do 2 more questions, and I'm going to open it up for audience Q&A. So my next question that I wanted to ask you all is, you know, a lot of times when we think about first generation students, we think about first generation in terms of undergraduate college students. And I was wondering how exactly does your experience being first gen impact you now within your current place within your journey? So you all are pretty far along. We have someone that is at the highest level here. Then we have some that are still in training. So I'm just wondering if being first generation still has some impact on your current profession or your training at this point. So.
Okay, I think for me, it has impacted my willingness to serve and give back. I'm currently the advisor for a first generation student run group that is focused on getting into medicine at UCF undergrad. Just it has made me, it's kind of given me the initiative to find other first generation students and kind of give them the steps and advice that, I received and give them the tools that I had in order to be successful. So it's kind of given me almost a sense of responsibility to give back.
Anyone else have any reflections on how being first gen has any impact or implications on where you currently are within your journey?
So I can go. So coming into dental school, being a first generation student was difficult, only because it's like a work-life balance, and then like you're also trying to navigate being in a new environment. So it was difficult trying to, I guess, get my family to understand that it's a lot of studying. It's not the same as like undergrad. I'm studying day in and day out, and then I'm at school like long hours, so there's not like time, I would say, for like not family outings but like other things. So in the beginning it's a hard adjustment in adjusting, like I said, to school in general, and then also figuring out how to balance, I guess, being back at home and juggling all of that. So that was, I guess, what was difficult for me.
Thank you for that question, Kim. And I'm just thinking, I realized for every step, the percentage of first gen students within my peers decreases. There's a lot of first gen undergrad, 10% or whatever in med school. And then when I get to faculty, especially, I'm interested in surgery, and surgeons are generally from not first gen background. And I realized that the tools, yes, undergrad was very, very jarring. And the tools that we developed over time helped us equip me essentially to deal with the first gen, the challenges of it. And from speaking to faculty who are first gen, those challenges don't necessarily go away. We just learn how to adapt to it and deal with it more quickly and efficiently, and establish our own support system, and reaching back as well. And so it motivates me now to promote equity in terms of medical education, as well as research. And so that my experience in the background really drives the types of questions I'm asking and what type of opportunities I pursue, definitely, and what type of medicine I want to do. So just keep your background very close to you. I ask my parents like every year regarding like, oh, like how have I changed this past year, and any thoughts on my progress as a individual, because I think it's sometimes we're so within ourselves that it's hard to see the changes that we've gone through and improve. And it's good to ask individuals who are close to you and knows you inside and out, essentially.
You're dropping all the gems today. I feel like I need to implement that myself too. Start asking my family, how have I changed this past year? What growth have you seen? No, I really love that. But also just you really emphasizing that, a lot of the things that you learned in terms of like persevering as a first generation student is still helping you at these later stages within your training and your program as well. So That was excellent to share, as well as the information that was shared earlier about just helping your family kind of get a better sense of what it means to like be at this stage within your education, and that it isn't the same as undergrad, and just trying to figure out the best ways for you to explain that to them, and I guess help them help you in the best way that they can by sharing that information. So let's see here. We're at 12:09. I want to leave about 10 minutes or so for audience Q&A. But the last question I'll close out with you all is there anything that you wish you knew at the start of your college journey or experience that you know now? So what is one thing that you wish you had within your toolkit when you first began? You're like, man, that would have really helped. Because this might be helpful for the students now. And just in terms of like resources or services, or how to build those connections with faculty or advisors, or developing a mentor. What's one piece of advice you would give our audience today?
I'll go. I would say, looking back, I would say build a strong relationship with your pre-health advisor. And I think I would say really one of the main reasons why I appreciate SNDP so much is because, so I was a non-traditional, undergrad or like pre-med student, in the sense that I came into undergrad as a physician assistant major. And so at Howard at the time, PA was a 4.5-year program. You did 2 years undergrad in the last 2.5 years in the program. And so because I was on the PA track, I oftentimes didn't really seek a lot of like guidance from the pre-health advisor, because I felt like I was already in a program kind of driven major. But luckily I did SNDP my freshman year summer. And so that's where I got a lot of the information that I needed to know how to like navigate the process. But looking back, and I remember because I had to go to see the pre-health advisor when I was getting ready to apply to medical school, because they have to write you a letter of recommendation. And I remember saying to her, and it's so funny, I remember saying, wow, I had no clue that your office even existed. I was asking her, why is it right now that I'm just now finding out about you as a junior? And so I joke about that because I recently reached back out to her to do some like recruitment at Howard. And she stated to me, she said to me, like, she remembers when I came into her office that day and how adamant or confused I was about like the fact that I didn't know her. So I think that a huge thing that you guys can do is to build a really strong relationship with your pre-health advisor. They're typically the ones that know about all the amazing programs out there. They typically have ideas around what resources that may be available to you, whether that's like test prep, like if you want to go to medical school, whether it's like Kaplan or Princeton Review, sometimes you can get it for free. So they're like a wealth of knowledge. And so I wish that's one thing looking back that I had done in undergrad.
No, that is great information. If you all have not established a relationship with your pre-health advisor on your campus, please do so. Or if you all don't have a pre-health advisor on your campus, you can also seek out advice from, it's a national organization called the National Association of Advisors for the Health Professions. And they have a system set up in which if you don't have a pre-health advisor, then they can connect you to one in NAAHP. So that's another resource for you, but also connecting with your career center. If you have a general academic advisor, make sure you connect with someone that has, that kind of experience or that background in the role. And I just see here that it looks like the resource was put in the chat there for who you all should be connecting with at your institution. So any other, final tips or advice for our audience members before we get into some Q&A here? I'm going to take silence as no. So, so I do see at least one question that came through the chat, and it was more so about doing a dual degree or trying to pursue two things, simultaneously, not necessarily related to health professions, but this individual mentioned they were interested in going to the Air Force when they graduate and also want to do a PhD program. And if both of those are possible, just based on what I know about military, a lot of times they do have educational benefits for you, so that you can complete your education while you're also serving. And then I think just from some of the guidance that we've heard here today from some of our panelists, that you can do two things at once. We have one of our panelists here that's doing a dual degree program, an MD and a PhD. So don't limit yourself or just like I only have to do one track versus the other. You can definitely pursue more than one thing at a time. I didn't know if any of our other panelists had any other things they wanted to offer, provide related to that question. Another question just came in related to, let me go back here. It says, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I see a really great question in the chat from Elise Signer. She has put, I have a quick question. How do you manage the heavy competitive environment and not fall into imposter syndrome?
Would any of our panelists like to speak to that? Because I know that each one of your professional, your health professions programs, is competitive, and imposter syndrome comes up a lot. I have my own thoughts about that, but I'm interested in what you all might want to share related to combating that.
I think that's a difficult question for me to answer personally, because I do fall into imposter syndrome all the time. And it's a little bit inevitable, unfortunately. So I've come to accept that feeling exists. And what I've done differently is have to cope with it, and etc. And one way for me is to so I do research on imposter syndrome because of that. So I fall back into the facts, right? Imposter syndrome is not an internal thing, it's an external factor that lends itself for individuals to believe it is an internal factor. And so I essentially to build your own, going back into mentoring support network, recognizing it when it happens, and like self-talking yourself out of it a little bit, and knowing that there's something about accepting that it happens, that the feeling happens, is kind of validating and relieving in some way. And what helps is just, to do my own thing, not comparing myself to others. Not, if I'm interested in something that may not fit the bill, even during my MD PhD, just do it. Like, even though my PhD is in basic science, I'm taking public health courses because that's what I'm interested in. And so making that space for yourself and demanding space and resources from your school, your institution, your program, and building that confidence over time. And it's hard. I think that it's we learn our own tools, unique tools of overcoming the feelings when it happens.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to check in with our other panelists to see if you had any additional insights to share there.
Yeah, I would just kind of chime in. Imposter syndrome, it's real. I think, one way of coping with imposter syndrome is just knowing that you're not alone.
I think he may have frozen there, but I did catch what he was about to say, that you're not alone within this process. Many of us that are from underrepresented backgrounds experience imposter syndrome. I feel like he's coming back there. Okay, awesome.
you hear me?
Yes, you froze for a second.
So yeah, perfect. What imposter syndrome is, I think it's all about realizing you're not alone. Even the most strongest student has moments to where they suffer from or experience imposter syndrome. Now, as a physician, I have moments where I, deal with imposter syndrome. I can go into an executive meeting with CEO CEOs and senior vice presidents, defense mechanisms, coping mechanisms, strategies for reducing that stress. And that's kind of what speaks to the perseverance and resilience that comes along with, going on this journey. But imposter syndrome is real. And for those that don't know much about imposter syndrome, I would empower you to kind of go look it up and do a little bit of research into it. I'm sure it's something that you probably already experienced, but haven't had the, haven't drawn the connection or put the title to it. But yeah, imposter syndrome is real, but it's something that affects the majority of us.
Well, I just wanted to take the time to thank all of our panelists today for all of the wisdom and the insight you were able to share about navigating the health professions as a first-generation student, and just really instilling more confidence in our audience members today. I am going to turn it back over to my colleague to see if he has any final closing thoughts for the audience members as they transition back into, I think, their class period, because this was their free block. But again, thank you all so much for participating today.
Yes, thank you to the panelists, and thank you, Kimberly, for moderating such a wonderful discussion. I know many of you might be hopping off really quick to get to your next class, but a reminder that it is First Generation Week. Our keystone event, the heart of our week, is going to be this afternoon. We have our First Generation reception, 5 to 6 p.m., multi-purpose room in our campus center. Chancellor, faculty, staff will be present. We hope you all can attend, and we might be able to see you there. And stay tuned to your Rutgers email as we have recorded this program. So we'll make sure that we follow up with the recording and some of the links that were put in the chat, so you can always reference back to those resources. Again, thank you all, and I wish you all a safe and enjoyable rest of your day and upcoming holiday. So be well, y'all.